right, we doing this again. We're doing this a nice Saturday edition, Quarantine with the Truth. And we're back with Pat Miletich, UFC Hall of Famer, conspiracy farmer. I think the people were trying to keep us from greatness yesterday, Pat. How you doing today?
Oh, they're trying again today too.
Oh man, we can't have that. We can't have that kind of behavior. Man, so I learned a new skill today. I learned how to. I finally hit the throwing knives thing. I feel like I developed a new skill set for whatever's going on right now.
I saw that. I saw the video. It looked pretty good, man.
It was, it's all about I guess the different styles of the knives because I have like these little ones that apparently you throw from the blade, but then they're not like really. I mean, starter knives. I'm gonna get the big ones once I learn how to
Right.
throw them, and we'll go from there. So
Either way, you start throwing knives, people are running.
that's the point. That's the point. I don't need people around me like that. So how's your
My
Saturday going?
Good, man. I was did a lot of yard work and then went looked at some land and a house
Okay.
out north of me and out in the country. It's got, you know, basically it's a small farm. Uh, it's got outbuildings, barns,
Okay.
pretty decent house, pretty decent
Man,
house,
I,
and
I love the
so
barns. I bet because I watch a lot of westerns, and you see the outhouses in the barns in those movies a lot. I love that.
I yeah, and I spent my summers on my grandma's farm when I was a little kid and stuff, and so it's got the old cedar trees and the
Okay.
and the cypress and the pines and all that stuff on it, and it just reminds me of my grandma's farm down in southern Iowa. So, you know, if I could have made an offer today, I would have, but I'm just not in the position to. I
Right.
told him I got to sell my house, so if he'll take an offer on contingency, so we're going to talk again probably tomorrow or Monday.
What was the age your grand or your grandparents had you out there working on the land?
I was down there till I was about 12,
Okay.
and then my grandma finally sold the farm. So it was sad because my grandfather had been killed in a wreck, an
Oh.
automobile accident,
Mhm.
and so she couldn't work it by herself, and so she just finally had to let it go.
Okay. But so at what age did you have to let it go for you? Like how old were you?
Right about
You said you cut out 12.
12 years old, yeah.
Oh, okay, nice, nice. So, what was it like after that? Like, where did you go? Was it still like in the rural area, or was it you start to venture out toward the city now?
Well, I mean, I lived in Bettendorf my whole life, so it's in a small town in Iowa. The
Yeah.
country was
So, is it
the
city,
country.
city?
I could
Yeah.
ride my bike. I could ride my bike into the country. So
Right.
I was in the country all the time. I was in the woods and stuff, and always fishing and building forts in the woods and all kinds of crazy shit.
I've never done the wood forts. I was always like couch cushions and pillows and stuff like that. I didn't build like the real fort. I always wanted a tree house though. I never built one.
Dude, we built a fort. Me and two of my buddies, we built a fort that was, uh, we made it a square down into the earth on the side of a hill in the woods. We went about 12 feet down, and then we put two by four and plywood framework over the top of it, and then we buried that with dirt, and then we built tunnels into it from different points and had those hidden. And we
Right.
had all the tunnels. We had all the tunnels and the walls framed up with wood and stuff like that. Just, I mean, it probably wouldn't have saved us, but it never did collapse on us.
See that was the things that I was kind of interested in as a kid, or at least trying to do. I just didn't have that exposure. But man, I wanted
Right.
to, like we said, a couple of days we want to hit on some important points that are kind of going on in today's, really I just want to kind of focus on the country. Obviously, it's a worldwide thing going on, but I really want
Right.
to focus more on us. Um, you just one thing that I've realized that I'm looking at both sides. Like I see things that you post, and I understand your perspective, and I'm seeing things that other people post, and I obviously understand their perspective. But it's just weird that like you have the two sides who are both, to be honest, and see that's how I look at things. Like I'm able to take a step back, be unbiased, and look at things logically. And as I'm
Right.
looking at your side, I'm looking at their side. I'm like, all right, they're both valid points, and they're both right in their own respect. But at what point is just like we stop fighting about it and try to just resolve our issues as opposed to fighting with each other about it?
Well, I mean, it's to me, it's a very simple solution. If you have a pre-existing condition or are elderly, stay home.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of us that are healthy, have to keep the nation going because if you let the machine stop like this, you kill the machine. And look, the bank stocks were already collapsing before this. I strongly feel that whether it was lab created or not, the global bankers and the controllers, the elites, took advantage of this situation
Mm-hmm.
to basically enrich themselves, to watch the stock market collapse, buy up a lot of stock, and it's not done collapsing. So that's the thing is, there's a lot of people that got back into the stock market that probably didn't follow the graph. The graph for the stock market for this collapse literally follows exactly the lines of the Great Depression. And there's a false bump that happens, which we're in now.
Of course, of course.
And then it tanks because everybody runs away from the American dollar here pretty soon.
So, the people who jumped back in, like, what do you think was their motivation? I mean, do you just think that they jumped too soon, or did you think that maybe they saw something that others didn't see?
Well, they just have no perspective. They have no perspective on history and paying attention. Dude, there's so many financial advisors out there that, I mean, they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, to be honest with you.
Right.
And I for whatever reason, fighting's what I did, but it wasn't who I was really. You know what I mean? I paid attention to a lot of this stuff my whole life, ever since I was little. Just for whatever reason, it just attracted me. So you can go online and you can research the exact graphs of the Great Depression and how the stock market went, and this mirrors it literally to the T.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a false bump, man. We're in a false bump because I don't think people understand that you can't just go back to work
Right, right.
after this.
Well,
There's
see,
a
and that's
there,
the
there
thing.
there's
And that's the thing. It's like you have it where people, they want to go back to work, but they can't go back to work because obviously they're healthy, but there's still that chance that they could possibly bring it back to someone else. But at the same time, they need to work to eat, to live.
right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a tough situation. I know people that have children with asthma.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary situation with something like this, a respiratory infection. So that can take a life, and so I do understand that. As I said before, I had it in January. My family had it in January. A ton of our crew had it in January from doing the show in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we all got it, and my brother had it. So, it. There were tens of millions of Americans that had this already before they even told us what it was. We're
I
talking
agree with that.
November, December, January. People were getting it left and right, including me. And as I said before, it hit me hard because I have a pre-existing condition. My respiratory system isn't great because I grew up in a dump of a house with a single mother. We're working our ass off, but the foundation was leaky, and I'd have 3 inches of water in the basement every time it rained, so there was black mold everywhere in the place my whole childhood.
I heard that. How? Tell me what is that experience like? Because I have no context. So you're a kid in Iowa. You're living in a basement. Obviously, the foundation and things like that are leaking where water is able to seep in. But like, what is that like? Like, you just deal with it when the water's flowing in? Like, are you like rushing to? Because for me, I've been in situations. Let's say the toilet is overflowing. I'm rushing to get some towels to put on the floor to stop the to soak up the water. Like, what are you doing in a situation where you're in the basement and like water's just basically coming through the ceiling?
Well, I mean, number one, I always had to keep my clothes and my shoes and everything valuable up off the floor if rain was coming. I didn't have carpet in my room. My bedroom was the old garage that was under the house that my dad, before he left, ran ductwork into and put a drop ceiling in. You know what I'm saying? So I'd wake up and not paying attention sometimes and put my feet down in 3-4 inches of water. And that's just the way it was. So I would go and I'd grab the garden hose and I'd put it in the sump pump, and then I'd run it down out the door, the basement door, and down the hill, and then I'd siphon like you're siphoning gas out of somebody's car, because Iowa boys know how to do that shit. And so you'd siphon, you'd suck on the end of the hose until the water would start coming out, and then throw it down, and the water would drain out of our basement using a garden hose like that, siphon the whole basement out.
Right. That's wild. So, like you said, you were able to grow up in that kind of environment. Was it like, did you see something? Did you know something was coming? Not obviously this type of thing, but just in general, did you envision like some kind of catastrophe sort of happening that was going to prepare you?
Well, and from a historical perspective, when we talk about false flags, people have to understand, saying a false flag is happening doesn't mean it's not actually happening. Like a mass shooting, for instance, in Las Vegas. We called that a false flag immediately. And people started going, what are you talking about? People lost their lives and this and that. And I go, you don't understand. This was planned by people. The dead guy laying on the carpet in the hotel room wasn't the guy that pulled the trigger. Right. That guy was dead before any rounds went down range. He's 68 years old. He smokes cigarettes. He can barely fucking walk around. Christian probably knows. He was in the military. Shooting a large caliber, fully automatic weapon, dude, beats the living shit out of you. I've shot those guns before.
It does.
Right. So that guy didn't do it. And so, we know his girlfriend was working for the CIA for years. She disappeared. Nobody's heard from her. Nobody can find the security guard that, supposedly was all this other stuff. It's just, if you do the research on it, you'll find it and understand that. So false flags, like the Gulf of Tonkin. The Gulf of Tonkin was the incident that caused the Vietnamese War. Right. Cost 1 million Vietnamese lives and over 50,000 American lives. It never happened. It was a false flag incident to get us in a war, for the profiteers to make a bunch of money. So people have to understand, if they're willing to kill over 1 million people to make money, you don't think they're willing to kill some people at a country concert in right. Las Vegas, right? So it's in context, false flags. So we had been doing research on, having guests on as far as bioweapons, asymmetrical warfare, the new way of doing war, because when you destroy a country, you don't want to destroy the infrastructure. You want to destroy it, you want to be able to go in, buy it up, and then basically buy all the corporations and farms and companies that are going bankrupt and basically control everything, right?
What do you feel? Because, the way I look at it, I always see it just as it's all about greed. It's about people who they want more and more, like whatever they have, the millions and billions that they currently have isn't enough. They need it all. And so at what point are you just like, you start to see a negative return on your, like, all this damage that's being done? Obviously you can come in and rebuild, but at what point are you just like, that was just too much?
It's not too much for them, because you have to understand, one of the goals is to thin the herd. If anybody's gone and looked at the Georgia Guidestones online and read what the Georgia Guidestones say, nobody even knows who put those up. Okay. But they talk about global population in perpetual to basically 500 million people, no more than 500 million. That's what they say on the Georgia Guidestones. Everybody knows who's done the research. Gates's father, funded and helped start Planned Parenthood with some folks that wanted to thin the herd of minorities. That was the goal of it originally. So Gates has flat out said we need population control. He's a eugenicist, and eugenicist, the root word of eugenics or eugenicist in Latin or Greek is basically that you are a higher DNA than everybody else on the planet, and you want to get rid of them. And that's, Margaret Sanger, who was the one that ran Planned Parenthood for Gates. She made statements and quotes that said, minorities are like weeds. They need to be picked and cold, and she said some horrible things. So these people, they want. Trust me, dude. They're trying to kill our asses.
So do you, but okay, I get that, but so I recently learned I started getting into Bitcoin, right? And
Yeah.
I put some dollars into that. And one thing that kind of recently popped up, they were talking about how Bitcoin, I guess, I don't remember what time frame, but after a certain of years, they half the amount, right? They cut 50% off, and that just starts to cycle over, and they get back to digging. Is that sort of?
Right.
Do you feel that's the plan from these people? Is sort of that type of thinning the herd as opposed to kind of having that special kind of race kind of thing going on? Do you think it's an entire country or is it race specific?
I think more than anything, it comes down to the folks that aren't. I think aren't in a position to be able to survive a situation like this, right? And they're not. I don't think they're picky. I
Okay,
don't think they
okay,
care. I don't think they care one way or another. They just feel that there's too many damn people on this planet, and that's the way they do things. So
okay.
uh, yeah, the eugenics thing is very real. But more than anything else, geopolitically, China has been our biggest threat for many years, and
Mm-hmm,
they've bought up many corporations in America, oil fields.
mm-hmm,
They control a lot. They're buying up the oil sands region in Canada.
mm-hmm.
Trudeau has sold out to them. They've and we've got guys like John Boehner, who's former Speaker of the House, and other former politicians, Holtzman, Furstein, John Christensen of Nebraska, Butani from Louisiana. The list goes on and on. These guys are registered foreign agents, and they work for Chinese corporation interests and put them in positions to buy up American companies like Smithfield Meats. That's the biggest processing company of hogs and cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And look, dude, they own 2,000 farms along with that under that Smithfield umbrella. So, that's just one example.
Well, okay, so even right now, like we're talking about the food supply chain is being affected. And obviously, if you have people not working for an extended period of time, like you're going to start to see things unravel. Where do you see it going from where it is? Because right now they're talking about it. If it's on the news, it's probably worse than what they're portraying it to be. So, what I mean, and I know because Texas just opened up yesterday, the first. Well, today,
Yeah,
yesterday, whatever.
right.
So I know people are starting to go back to work. But what do you see happening next? Like, do you think it's going to get worse, or with people coming back now, the food supply chain is going to get better?
The food supply chain thing isn't going to hit for a while. The worst part of it. I mean,
Okay.
that's coming because cattle ranchers and people that can't afford to keep paying their cattle because they're ready for market, and they got new ones, young ones coming up.
Right.
Same thing with hogs. They need to go to the market.
Right.
Nobody's processing them. They got to take them and they got to kill all of them, and that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of animals. So that gap in the food chain from the farm right now, that would move forward then to the processing plants and then be distributed out to the grocery stores and all that sort of stuff. So that's down the road, and there's going to be massive shortages. And so look, if you look at, and this might blow some people's minds, but they can research it and prove me wrong if they want. But the Agenda 21, UN Agenda 21, and the Green New Deal, if you lay those over the top of each other, the goals of those, move people from rural areas into cities, control the food production completely by big corporations tied to government, all that sort of stuff. The new emissions controls, getting rid of cows that
Well,
fart.
I
They
want to
literally
I want to
talked about
know
that.
the Green New Deal. I want to know your perspective on that and how your take on what it does to the country or for the country.
Look, you're seeing what it's doing to the country because that's what's happening by the stipulations and regulations that were put inside of the bailout bills, the stimulus bill to all these airlines and corporations and everything else. They can't meet these emissions controls, guys, and their new bosses are the government and the controllers up above. So you got the Delta CEO comes on and does on CNN and says, "Yeah, man, you're going to have a certificate that says you've been vaccinated to get on one of our planes, most likely." And you go, "Wait a minute, wait, yeah, no, no, I'm not doing business with you. Number one, but you and I have to fly to work, bro.
Yeah.
That's draconian. That is some serious draconian shit, right?"
I agree because I was trying to figure I thought about that. Are they going to put that like next to my pre-check number? Like, is it going to be something like that where I can just like I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's wild to me.
Right. Well, and think about it. Last time I renewed my driver's license, and the lady goes, by October you got to have a gold star up here in the corner on your driver's license to be able to get on planes, saying
Right.
you went through an extra security check and all that other shit.
Uh,
Well, I look at her and I go, huh,
I hope that's
gold
better,
star,
Christian.
huh? That's
No,
gold star. That sounds familiar from history, doesn't it?
right.
Remember him sticking gold stars on the poor Jewish folks in
I do.
Germany.
I do.
So people have to wake up. Now, here's something that is the most alarming tweet I've ever read in my life.
Mhm.
Elon Musk, who was the inventor and facilitator of putting Skynet into the air, that we see that at night. Skynet, the global monitoring system for the social point system that's coming
Right.
to
Right.
America. That
Right.
was, by the way, created, proven, and
Dude,
tested in China.
that shit's
You
crazy.
you,
Like, have you seen that
you
shit
get in
though?
trouble.
Did you see that shit?
You get Oh yeah, I've seen it fly over my house,
That
bro.
shit is.
I've seen it fly over my. Yeah, but Elon Musk sends out a tweet. What was it, May 1st or whatever? And he goes, I'm. It says connection lost, but I'll keep talking
I
here.
can hear you. I can hear you.
Just in case. I don't know. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. You haven't cut out.
Okay. All right, cool. So Elon Musk sends out a tweet May 1st, and it says, I'm divesting myself of almost all my belongings, and I'm selling my house. I'll no longer have a house. And so I go, okay, bro,
Well,
I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. You don't want
but Tesla
to have
lost like
he doesn't,
50. Like, they lost a bunch. That when he after like right after that tweet, like they dipped like
dude,
50 points.
but listen, dude, listen. He doesn't want an address when the citizens figure out what 5G and Skynet is for. People are going to lose their fucking minds. People are
Just
absolutely going to lose their
as
minds.
you bring up 5G, you're not saying that 5G caused a Rona at any point, did you? I just want to make sure.
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I don't necessarily believe that. Although, there are scientists who have come out and said that, when the radar systems were enacted around the world, when AM radio was started, when FM
Uh-huh.
radio was started, that the electromagnet magnet field basically damages the human body. So
Right.
whatever that is, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to verify that. I don't disbelieve or believe that. Right? It is what it is. That's
Right.
what a
Right.
scientist said. And look, he's above my pay grade in that area. That's for sure. That's the thing, is that people have to understand that a social point system is coming. So when you jaywalk, get a speeding ticket, get in a fight at a bar, certainly get more trouble than that. Then you lose your ability to do things. You lose your social credit, your credit score. You can't rent a nice apartment. You can't get on an airplane. You're not afforded the rights that everybody else that is walking in lockstep with the controller's orders.
So my first experience, like really, really, hearing about the whole social credit. There's this wrestler, I can't remember one of the Asian, maybe China, maybe Korea, and it was something where it was Korea, because I guess the Korean national sport is taekwondo. And they went there and because all these old traditional martial arts, they're like how they're the best or whatever. And so he went over there and like smoked a bunch of their dudes, and then basically the government, like, they lowered his social credit. Like, there was one he had to go to, or no, he was an MMA fighter, not a wrestler. He had a fight to go to, and because his social credit was so low, he had to take like some mad like 14, 15-hour train ride because his social credit was too low for him to take a flight. And I was just like, yo. But and all of that
So
happened because like he beat up some people that really wasn't fighters.
yeah, yeah. Well, man, people need to understand here in America. Uh, look, you can't participate in their programs. If I'm a guy who rents to people, and look,
Mm-hmm.
if you're making enough money and you show that you're making a good living, and that the fact you got in a fight at a bar or jaywalked or got a speeding ticket,
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit what your social credit score is. That's me not taking part in their program. If everyone
Right.
says fuck you, we're not taking part in your program, it doesn't work. But out of fear-based conditioning, what we're seeing with this coronavirus, and yes, I feel terrible, and it's awful that people are losing their life to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fear-based conditioning that the media is pounding people with all day and all night is it's terrible, man. It's terrible what they're doing to people's minds,
Right.
and people need to say, "Whoa, no, um, I shouldn't be this afraid. I should not." I go, dude. Iowa is one of the friendliest places in the world. People say hi constantly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
What was it?
even,
What is it like now there with this going on? I'm curious.
dude, I go to a grocery store and people are afraid to even look at me. They'll walk
I
past.
know.
They walk past you. They got a mask on and they'll walk and they'll turn their head away from you,
I just
and
want
I
to.
just open doors for people and smile and go, "Hey, how you doing, man?"
So you kind of get a feel of what it's like to be black a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little. It's crazy because for me, like as I start to when I go to Walmart and stuff, and I'm looking at people and I see how people move. So I remember the first time I went to Walmart and I saw like the 6 foot line. And, or like the little
Oh yeah.
tape, and I walked up to it and I looked at the person that was in front of me, and then I was just like, wait a minute. Like, how close were y'all really standing to people? Now, I wasn't standing 6 feet apart, but if I would take like a foot, I was probably normally, without even thinking about it, I probably stand 4 feet from people. I don't touch stuff like people are saying. And the biggest one for me, I swear to you, this blew my mind when you're seeing people's like store advertisements and commercials tell adults to wash their hands. I'm thinking like, what were y'all doing before? But that was a rhetorical question. That was a rhetorical question because we travel a lot, and when you in airplane or airports and even airplanes, all these things, you see people use a restroom, and I see countless number of times people just walk out of stalls and don't wash their hands. And these people are just
Right.
going out touching stuff. And that's what I'm saying. So my question to you is, I know where you stand now, but do you feel if people were conscious about these things like washing hands 6 months ago, do you feel something that small would have prevented the scale that we're at now?
There was no stopping the spread of it. There was no stopping the spread of it because the Chinese, reportedly, strategically sent people on flights around the world to make
Okay.
sure that it was given out. Look, yeah, washing your hands. You got to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, of course.
Man,
But I'm a guy.
you say of course,
I'm.
like I'm telling you, I say of course
Oh, I
too.
know, I know,
People
I know, I know.
nasty,
I see.
man.
But here's the thing. Um, I grew up in sweaty, hot,
Yeah.
muggy wrestling rooms my whole life, dude. I've been exposed to uh, all kinds of stuff in wrestling rooms. It's just that's in MMA. You know how it is.
Hmm.
I'm not a germaphobe. I'm absolutely not a germaphobe. And the more we aren't, look, the
I
human,
am.
the
I'm a
human.
big germaphobe. I don't give a shit.
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The human condition by using all these antibacterial soaps constantly, 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 protecting yourself and not
Right,
get,
right,
you're
right.
not building any kind of you're
I
destroying
agree.
your immune
I
system.
agree. I agree with
And
that.
so I'm a guy that's out working in my yard constantly. My hands are in the dirt. I'm in the microorganisms in the soil.
Right.
That's important.
I
That's
agree.
what we
I do
used to
agree.
do,
I agree. And
right?
I love, like, for me, that's one thing that I've always sort of prided myself on just as a person was just having a solid immune system. I've always taken care of it. For me to get sick, like that's some crazy shit. And but again, that's just how I move now. Like I'm not like people that's all nasty and germy. Like I'm away from them before it even gets popping, So I was listening because I had it in the queue for a while. I wanted to listen to the podcast with the Russian Spets and the Sunny. And I liked him
Yeah.
because I was listening to him speak about a bunch of things, and I have that same perspective. As he was saying it, I was like, "Yo, I think the same thing." But what, like, one thing that I took from that is there's a lot of talk about what's going on, but what is the solution to where we are now? Not a month ago, but right now. What do you feel is a solution to sort of stop what is going on? Not the virus itself, but the people who are implementing this crazy, like, volatile plan. Like, how do we stop that as a people?
Again, one, don't participate in any of their programs. Tell them to fuck off. Just absolutely don't participate in it. We've got to the two constitutions. There's two constitutions. There's a constitution for we the people, and there's a constitution for DC itself. That is a sovereign nation with a different constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think politicians never go to prison for doing wrong? The politicians that just who were on the they were on intel committees, and they heard about this coming and what was going to be the protocol for it.
They're
and
nasty.
They sold millions and millions and millions of dollars of stock, and then tank our economy and put me in the poorhouse, put you in the poorhouse potentially. And that's where we need to get rid of that second constitution and hold them accountable. And that potentially could come to a couple different things. I mean, a tax revolt of people who file taxes every year, just simply file an extension, and then everybody files an extension again and again until you start getting what you want as a citizen. And that's the thing. If everybody did it, there's so many chicken shits out there that wouldn't do it.
Right.
But you got to figure out who's going to stand up and do this. Mm-hmm. You got to have people sign up, whatever. They're already monitoring that, of course. But also, you've got to reverse the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which, in it allows the media to spray propaganda down our throats. They can lie legally now.
Wait. I missed that one. What's this?
Yeah. There's three major legs to National Defense Authorization Act. One is that the worst one probably, is that it makes it legal for the media to put out propaganda. Okay, right? So they used it as a constitutional. Under constitutional umbrella of saying, but it's the First Amendment. They can say what they want. You see what I'm saying? So they can lie to us. Two, they can kill American citizens without any kind of trial. They just Obama did it. Reagan did it.
Yeah, that's true.
They just Trump's doing it. Bush's did it, of course. So it doesn't matter what party the president comes from, they're still abusing the shit out of us. And then on top of that, they can detain you. They can come get your ass and put you in prison, not tell anybody where you're at. You don't get a call to an attorney. You don't get a call to your family. And you sit and rot in Guantanamo Bay or wherever they decide to put your ass. And you got no choice in the matter. And you're an American citizen. So that's the NDAA. The Patriot Act was the predecessor of that. That needs to be reversed. A gold-backed Treasury note that's interest-free, printed by our Treasury. Abolish the Federal Reserve. Absolutely kill the Federal Reserve. Those predatory son of bitches.
How do we? Here's one thing I've been curious now. How do we kill the two-party system? How do we kill that?
You know what? I think everybody. Look, there's so many sheep that we can't do it. People are fighting left and right. And I've been part of it, but I try to do it based on.
I'm glad you admitted that. I'm glad you admitted that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do it based on a more of honestly a constitutional. And I voted for Trump. I know. And it still remains to be seen. Although he did roll the Federal Reserve into and underneath the United States Treasury, that technically. Mnuchin is over that, and Trump is over him. So technically, Trump is the controller now of the Federal Reserve and the United States Treasury. So if he decides to pull the trigger and kill the Federal Reserve, he has the capability of doing that. The problem is he's only hinted at it 3 times. One time before he was president when he was campaigning, two other times that I've heard and I've listened to a lot of what he says,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll just in passing slip it in about the Federal Reserve is bad for us. And so um, if they catch wind that he's dead serious and going to kill it, they'll kill him like they did to Kennedy and Lincoln, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know you said you had to get out of here at 6, but I have one more big important question to ask you. Monty
right.
Cox recently announced, man, you about to get back in that thing and get back in the do a kickboxing match with former the IBF and WBA champion Michael Nunn. Tell man, you got to fill me in. What's up? Because you've told me a little bit about it, but this is the first time that is like public knowledge. So let's hear what we got.
Right. You know what? I was in my attorney's office, and he's also Michael Nunn's attorney, and he made a suggestion. He goes, you guys should do some sort of event together. Maybe you two fight. And I go, I'm not boxing with him, even if he's a half the guy he was before. Boxing, dude, he's 6'2", 6'2.5". His arms are a mile long, dude. In his prime, nobody could touch him. I mean,
Right. I was actually
Sugar
went
Ray
back
Leonard,
and watched some fights of him, and I was like, oh shit, like he's good.
No, he was the best pound for pound boxer in the world for 4 years by boxing authorities, right? So he's letting me kick. So that's the beautiful thing about it. So it's a challenge for me
It is.
because he's so ungodly good at boxing. And look, I spent a lot of years sparring with a lot of incredible boxers, man. Tough guys with 29-1 record type guys. They weren't world champs, but they were damn close. They were very good fighters, and I donated a lot of blood in the boxing gym till I could hang with those guys. But Michael Nunn's he's a different universe level boxer. So the fact that I'll be able to kick, it's going to be a real test for him because he's never been kicked in the legs before, and we all know how bad that shit hurts. And if I destroy his wheels before he take a nap, then I'll be all good. But and it's a challenge for me because I can't take him down and choke the shit out of him. So it makes it a little different.
So this is supposed to take place post Rona, obviously. What's the tentative date for this or around?
Well, we were supposed to be we made it for June 6th before this stuff even happened.
Right.
But given the situation, who knows? We had to move it from Illinois over to Iowa because J.B. Pritzker, the governor in Illinois, has sold out to special interests also and trying to tank the economy as much as he can. The Oregon liberal psychopath governor over there, that lady pushed their opening back to July 6th, bro.
That's wild, dude. That is wild. Well, it's wild on both things, though. It's wild that they're pushing it that far back, and then, to be honest, it's wild that the citizens of that state forced them to push it far. They just stayed their asses at home. They wouldn't have done this.
Right. Well, but at the same time, Oregon, I think, and Washington, they had a lot of those early cases because there's a lot of folks coming over from China into those areas.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
they got, just like in northern Italy, where that factory was and that Chinese-based company, their corporation location was Wuhan, their headquarters, and so people were flying directly from Wuhan into northern Italy and spread it over there really bad.
Right. Crazy times, Coach. But man, I appreciate you. We finally got this done. You shared some great knowledge. The people I can throw your social media. Actually, your social media up right now. Follow you on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe to the Conspiracy Farm podcast on all the podcast platforms. And this thing is over soon, man. So we can get back to some fights, baby.
Absolutely. And Ron Crook and I just launched the Final Round podcast. We had Randy Couture as our first guest.
Nice.
And then Scott Coker was our second guest. And then this coming week, we're going to have Sean Patrick Flannery from the Boondock Saints, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, that's
dope.
And
then after that, we're going to interview some guys from the upcoming UFC events down in Florida.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Actually coming up this Monday. I haven't announced the lineup yet, but Monday I'll have on the Quarantine with the Truth, Hurricane Ike Villanueva, who just got signed. He's the Fury FC 205 champ. He just got signed to the UFC like yesterday, and he's making
Beautiful.
his debut on that Jacksonville card against Chase Sherman. But he told me,
nice.
he's been telling me, this dude been fighting for like 14 years, and he told me like in his last like shit, probably 3 or 4 fights. He was like, Truth. He said, when I get signed, you gonna be my first interview. And shit, he making it
That's
happen.
awesome.
Yeah. So I'm his first interview since getting signed, and it's coming this Monday. I'm
Good
excited
shit.
about it, man.
There you go.
All right,
Yes,
Coach.
good.
Man, you stay safe out there, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Mike. Take care,
All right,
brother.
You too, baby. All right, guys. Y'all be good. We're out.